5 different delicious rice recipe you can make this season. So the first one is our Chinese rice. So to make our Chinese rice, we are going to be adding vegetable oil inside our pan. Then the first thing we are going to do is to make sure that we scramble those eggs. So I'm just going to whisk my egg. I added a little bit of seasoning to my eggs. Then I'm just going to scramble those eggs. Now once I'm done, I'm just going to remove that from the pan. Now I'm going to go over with my marinated chicken. So I just cut my chicken into cubes. Then I added my seasoning powder, my garlic powder, my um, added my curry powder, my sesame oil to marinate the chicken. Then I'm just going to give that a stir, and I'm going to let it simmer for a few minutes. Now once it is properly cooked, I'm just going to remove that from my pan. Then I'm just going to set it aside. Now the next thing I'm going to be adding is my prawns. I'm just going to fry my prawns for a few minutes. So I added my sausage to it. Then I'm just going to fry that for about 2 minutes, and I'm going to bring it out from the pan. So at this time I added vegetable oil to my pan. I'm just going to be frying the veggies. So for the veggies, I'm using carrots, grated carrots. I'm using green bell peppers. Then I'm going to be adding cabbage to it. So I added my sesame oil to it. Then I also added my dark soy sauce to it. Then I'm just going to let that simmer for a few minutes. So at this time, I already parboiled my basmati rice because I'm going to be using basmati rice. The best rice to use for your Chinese rice is your basmati rice. I already parboiled my basmati rice. Then I'm just going to be adding my parboiled basmati rice to my veggies that I just fried. Now I'm just going to give that a stir. Then I'm going to add in my oyster sauce to it. So at this time, you need to be generous with your oyster sauce because that's the only seasoning you are going to be using for this rice. Note that you are not going to be using any seasoning for this recipe. So you are just going to stir that. So give it a good mix so that all the ingredients and the oyster sauce can incorporate together. Then at this time, I introduce my scrambled eggs, my prawns, my chicken, everything. I introduce it. Then I'm just going to give it a stir. So this rice is very, very delicious. So you can serve this rice with your chicken curry sauce, and it's going to come out very, very delicious. Now I paired mine with my chicken curry sauce, and it came out very, very nice. Now the next rice recipe is our authentic Nigeria fried rice. So this is the best method I use in making my fried rice, and I'm going to be using basmati rice for this fried rice. The best rice I use for my fried rice is my basmati rice, but if you don't have basmati rice, you can use any rice of your choice. Now the first thing I'm just going to do is to pour in my rice into my bowl. Then I'm going to add in hot water to it just to wash it. I'm not going to be parboiling it. I'm just going to add in some hot water to it just to wash that rice. Now for my protein, I'm going to be using chicken for it. You can use any protein that you have. Then to season my protein, I'm going to be using garlic powder. I'm going to be using chicken seasoning. Then I'm going to be using chicken seasoning cubes. Then I'll add in my salt. Then I'm going to be adding in my onions to it. So I'm going to be adding my rosemary leaves to it. These are basically all the seasonings I'm going to be using for my protein. Then I added bay leaves to it. Then I'm going to be adding my curry powder to it. So once I'm done adding in all my seasoning, I'm just going to give this a stir. So I added my dried shallots to it also. So I'm just going to give that a stir. I'm using soft chicken for my fried rice. Like I said, you can use any protein of your choice. Then I'm just going to cover it. I added salt to it. I'm just going to cover it and let it boil for, or let it cook for few minutes. So because it's soft chicken, I'm not going to let it stay long. Now adding water is optional depending on the kind of chicken you are cooking. So I don't add water to my chicken except I just want to have enough stock or chicken stock for my rice, then I'll just add a little amount of water. But if I have enough water on my coming from my chicken, like my chicken stock, it's enough, I will not just add water. But if it's not going to be enough for my rice, I'll just add a little amount of water to it. So that's basically how I cook my fried rice. Now once it is properly cooked, I'm just going to remove that from the pot. Then I'm going to place another pot on the cooker. So I added vegetable oil. If you have margarine, I would advise I use margarine. Margarine is very good for making your fried rice. So I added a little amount of diced onions to that. So I'm just going to let that simmer for a few minutes. Then I'm going to start adding my seasonings like my spices. I added my bay leaves, I added garlic powder. I'm going to be adding my curry powder to it. I can adjust my curry powder later. Then I'm just going to give that a stir. So I already washed my rice. Then I'm going to fry that rice for a few minutes. I'm going to fry that rice with my spices and all that I've already added to my vegetable oil. Like I said, if you have margarine, I will advise I use margarine for this recipe. So I'm just going to let that fry for a few minutes. Then I'm going to be adding my chicken stock to it. So before that, I'll be adding my pepper mix, a little amount of my pepper mix, because I want this rice to have pepper. But if you don't, this is optional. If you don't want pepper in your fried rice, you can omit this part. Then I'm just going to stir that. So I normally do this. I'm adding my stock to it. I normally sieve my stock when adding it to my fried rice, because I don't want to be getting all those funny things, or what do I call it, inside my rice. So I'm going to adjust it with a little amount of water, because I noticed that my stock is not enough. But if you have enough stock, there is no need of adding extra water to it. Now I'm just going to give that a little stir. I'm going to cover it. Note that your water should be a little above your rice, or the same level with your rice. So I adjusted my seasoning, added my seasoning cubes and my salt. I'm just going to taste it to make sure that the taste is perfect to what I want. And I'm just going to cover this and allow it to cook for few minutes. About 30 minutes is okay. Then you're just going to stir it. Note that your fried rice should not be overcooked, because you are still going to fry it. So for the veggies, I'm going to be using my carrot, my green bell peppers, my liver. Then I've already cut my liver. I diced my liver. I'm just going to give my liver a stir. Then I'm adding my sausage to it. This sausage is optional. So persons don't like sausage, so I added carrot to it. These are basically all the added green beans and green peas to it. I'm going to stir that. Some persons, they don't like sausage in their fried rice, but I love it, so I always add it to my fried rice. Then I'm going to be adding my sweet corn to it. I'm just going to season that a little. So before you add in your seasoning to it, make sure that you have already tasted your rice to make sure that so that the seasoning will not be too much. So I added my spring onions to it. So I added it to the rice off like I added the veggies to the rice off camera. Then I'm just going to stir that and let it fry for a few minutes, and our fried rice is ready. So that's it for how to cook Nigerian authentic fried rice. And you can serve this with your coleslaw and any protein of your choice. Now the next rice recipe we are going to be making is our coconut rice. Now to make our coconut rice, the first thing we are going to do is to add in our vegetable oil to our pot. Then we are just going to, no matter the protein you are using, you're just going to fry it a little bit inside your vegetable oil that you just placed in your pot. You're just going to fry that for a few minutes. Note that we are frying it raw, like the protein is not cooked yet, so we're just going to be frying it. We are going to introduce it inside the rice later for it to be properly cooked, so we just want it to release some flavors inside our vegetable oil. Now the next thing we are going to do is to go over with our pepper mix. Now this depends on if you want your coconut rice to have that reddish look. Depends if you want. If you want, you can add a little amount of paprika to it. So I'm adding my seasonings to it. So once I'm done adding in my seasonings, my salt, I'm just going to give that a stir. Now I'm going to be using my canned coconut milk. So if you don't have canned coconut milk, you can use the normal coconut milk, like the natural coconut milk. So this one normally gives it a more thick consistency. You can see how it is. So if you have that other one, or you have the time to make that one, it's preferable. So I added a little amount of coconut flavor to it. So that coconut flavor gives it a very, very unique aroma. Now I introduced my already my already washed rice to it. I'm just going to give that a stir. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to add in more water to it, because if you are cooking coconut rice, because of the coconut milk, if you don't add in enough water, it's going to burn quickly and your rice is not going to be cooked. Now the next thing I will do at this time, I'm just going to introduce my chicken or my protein to it. Then I'm just going to let that cook together for at least 20 to 30 minutes on medium heat. Now after a few minutes of cooking, this is the outcome of our coconut rice. Now the next recipe we are going to be making is our jollof rice. So for our jollof rice, these are the spices I'm going to be using. I'm using paprika, I'm using garlic powder, seasoning powder, curry powder and rosemary leaves. So the first thing I'm going to do is to seasoning my proteins. I'm using chicken. Using that seasoning that I show in the other part is for the rice. Now I'm going to seasoning my protein that I'm going to be using for the rice. So I'm just going to use all my seasoning like garlic powder, salt, chicken seasoning, and all that. Then I'm just going to stir that and let it cook for a few minutes. Now once I'm done cooking, I'm just going to remove it from the heat. So I'm going to add in my vegetable oil to my pot. Note that this is the only ideal pot you should use for your fried rice. I mean for your jollof rice. Sorry about that. So this is the only pot because your jollof rice is going to burn. So you need this kind of pot. So make sure that you add in to your all your spices to your oil. Then you are going to add in your tomato paste to it. Then you're just going to let that fry for a few minutes. Make sure you fry your tomato paste. So this is what is going to determine if your jollof rice is going to come out nice or not. So you are going to make sure that your tomato paste is very fried. Not Make sure you don't burn it. So I added my bay leaves to it also. I added my rosemary leaves. I added my thyme. So I'm just going to stir this and let it fry for a few minutes. Now the next thing I'm going to be adding is my tomatoes that I've already blended. So I used fresh tomatoes. So the what I normally do is to boil my fresh tomatoes before I blend it. I normally boil it first, so it helps to remove that harsh taste from it. So I'm just going to add in at this time I'm going to start seasoning it with my salt, with my seasoning cubes, and all the seasonings I'm going to be using for this recipe. So I'm also going to be adding paprika to it. So the reason why I'll be adding paprika is to give it that reddish look. Now I'm just going to introduce my already washed rice. Note that I did not parboil it. I just washed my rice. So I am just going to be introducing my rice, and I'm going to give it a stir. Then I'm going to adjust a little water to it. I want the water to be a little above the rice because the rice is hard. Then I'm just going to give that a stir. Now I'm just going to be adding my foil paper. Note that this is optional. Then I'm going to cover it. This is just to trap all the heat. I'm just going to cover that. So after a few minutes, I'm just going to start turning my rice. Note that this process is very important because if you don't do this, your rice is just going to be burning and the upper part will not be properly cooked, while the down part might just be cooked and the upper part is not cooked. So this is just to allow the upper part go to the down part. Then it's going to also allow the oil, vegetable oil, go to the down part and start cooking the rice, because we are basically cooking the jollof rice with the oil. That's why we have excess oil in it. So you're just going to start continuing this process till your rice is properly cooked. Just come stir it, cover it, and make sure that you allow it to get to that stage where it is burning. If your jollof rice doesn't burn, then that's not Nigerian jollof rice. Now once there is no oil inside again, then you know that your jollof rice is ready. Now this process is optional. I'm just going to be adding sausage and onions to it. So if you don't like sausage in your jollof rice, you don't need to add it. So this is optional. Now at this time, I'm going to be removing the bay leaves because you don't want people to be eating your rice and they will be seeing bay leaves inside your rice. So I'm just going to be removing the bay leaves from my rice. Now the rice is ready. Now the next recipe is the Caribbean rice. So Caribbean rice is a little bit easy to make. So all you just have to do is you need all your green veggies like your bell peppers, your parsley, your spring onions and all that. Then you're just going to grate, you're just going to blend them, then add in your vegetable oil to your pot, then pour it in. Then you're just going to let that fry for a few minutes. So I'm just going to add in my stock to it. Then I'm going to add in all my seasonings to it. Then I'm going to add in my coconut milk to it. So the only coconut milk that you can use for this recipe is the canned coconut milk, because we don't want any, because the other coconut milk has flavor and this canned coconut milk doesn't have flavor, so we are going to be using that. So I'm just going to introduce my rice to it, then I'm going to give that a stir. So I added extra salt to it, so I'm going to give that a stir, adjust water, then I'm just going to let it cook for a few minutes. So once I'm done cooking, I'm going to be adding in my chicken and my red kidney beans to it, then give it a stir and the rice is ready. Now the next rice recipe is the jambalaya rice. The jambalaya rice is just like jollof rice, just a little different from jollof rice. It's almost like jollof rice. So the first thing we are going to do is to add in our vegetable oil to our pan. Then we are going to be adding our marinated chicken to it. Then we're just going to give that a stir, let it fry or cook for a few minutes. Then we are going to be adding our pepper mix to it. So once our pepper mix is properly cooked, we're just going to introduce our rice to it, then give it a stir. So give it a stir, adjust your seasonings. So note that the pepper mix you are using is your red bell peppers, is what you are going to be using for this rice. Red bell peppers is your pepper mix. You are not going to be using any other peppers. Your red bell peppers and a little amount of scotch bonnet peppers is what is used for jambalaya rice. So let it cook for a few minutes. Then after a few minutes, we are going to be slicing in some red bell peppers to it. Then at this time, you are going to introduce your fried chicken that you fried before and your sausage. Give that a stir, then your jambalaya rice is ready. This rice is very simple, simpler than jollof rice. So this is it for how to make different rice recipes. At this time, if you are yet to subscribe to my YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? Please hit that subscribe button, subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you will be notified. Also click the notification bell so that you'll be notified anytime I drop any new video. So thank you for watching this video. I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye.